left Santa Cruz this morning and in the fog and motored across the bay to Monterey, and for the first time in a while we're tied up at the dock, and the price there is really good, 75 bucks for 2 nights, which is like half of what we were paying in San Francisco, and just taking a walk around town.
We arrived in Monterey on a Sunday, so it was busy. We joined the crowd on Fisherman's Wharf, visited a national park historic site, and walked over to Cannery Row. To add to the energy, there was a Greek festival with food and live music in the square right next to the marina. Monterey is home to one of the world's premier aquariums. It was a splurge, but totally worth a visit. It's a big aquarium and there's lots to see. But the big draw are the 2 huge tanks that are 3 stories deep. One features the kelp forest environment that's prevalent along the California coast, and the other the deep ocean. Our favorites, though, were the bright colors of the tropical fish tanks. We really enjoyed being on the dock in Monterey. The sea lions were a little bit noisy, but it was relatively still and we met tons of people, including Joe and Martin, 2 locals. We spent quite a few afternoons with them, enough that Martin offered us the use of a vehicle for a day to go on a road trip down the coast of Big Sur. The Central Californian coast is very rugged and relatively unpopulated. The drive south on Highway 1 is spectacular, with the road often on a cliff edge above the sea. We weren't the only crew rubbernecking our way south, and the many pullouts made sightseeing easy. Our turnaround point was a state park near Big Sur. The park is only a short distance inland, but is much different in terms of climate and foliage, the main attraction being the redwood groves by the river and the valley. When we are ashore, our main form of entertainment is walking. Martin suggested that we walk west to the neighboring town of Pacific Grove to see Lover's Point. He wasn't wrong. The shoreline is beautiful. We also enjoyed looking at all the gorgeous homes and strolling through the small town center. We loved our week in Monterey, but California's Central Coast beckons. We left Monterey this afternoon about 1 o'clock. It's a Sunday, October 2nd, and we're heading towards Carmel, which is only, if we just done a straight shot, it would only have been 13 miles from the marina to the anchorage in Carmel. But that cuts 13 miles off the next leg, which is down to a place called San Simeon. And San Simeon is 70 miles from Carmel. And as the farther south we go, the shorter the days become. So 70 miles starts to become pretty close to as much as we can do from sunrise to sunset and still have light at both ends. So it's worth getting out there today and cutting that 13 miles off to avoid anchoring in the dark in some unknown location. The sun just set in Stillwater Cove, which is just off the Pebble Beach Golf Course in Carmel. And considering that's the open Pacific right there, it's quite a good anchorage because we've got barely any movement on the boat here and no wind whatsoever. It's wonderful. It's sunrise over Carmel, and unlike the north, it's not that early. We got up at 5:45 and it was still full dark. You could see a little hint of light in the sky at about 6 o'clock, and then getting the anchor up from that kelp bed was a bit of a challenge. It's almost 7 now, and we're underway. We've got 66 miles as the crow flies, but we're going to end up doing closer to 70 by the time it's all done. To our next spot, that's why we got up so early. We should be arriving there sometime around 7 o'clock, which is when it starts to get dark again. We're abeam of Point Sur, which is that mound in the distance. There's actually a historic light on top of it, and you can take tours there on some days of the week. It looks like an island when you're approaching it from the north or the south, but it's actually
attached to the mainland by an isthmus of low land. And you can see the kind of low pasture land behind it, that lighter green. It's quite a corner on the coast actually, and local knowledge says that the winds are stronger here than they are north of it or south of it. The winds for today are actually forecast to pick up to be quite strong this afternoon, but it's still only early in the morning and we only have 16 knots here. So my hunch is that we've rounded it well ahead of the arrival of any heavy winds, and we should be fine the further south we go.
It's taken me a while to get to this point. I can see you losing patience, but this life is the one I've chosen, babe. With all those trials and complications, and I know I'm gonna make it. Determination is my friend, and you will see me win on a slow burn in my heart. I'm reaching out.
We're approaching our anchorage, San Simeon, and the wind's picked up predictably. It's blowing 22, gusting 26, and we're surfing down pretty much every single wave now, doing between 7 knots and then 9 knots when we're surfing. So there's a couple of kelp patches outside that we have to dodge, and then once we get into the bay, reports are that it'll be much calmer than it is out here. Well, we've arrived at San Simeon. Had a little sting in the tail. We saw winds to 30 knots for quite a bit of the end of it. We put a third reef in the main. But we got in here, there's 5 knots of wind. I don't know where all the wind went because it's just on the other side of a little peninsula in front of us. But I'll take it.